one last book review for the night. Um, this is by a guy who is a literary critic. It's not literary criticism, it's actually a very small book of autobiographical writing by him. Um, it's he's not very well known. He's kind of a geeky sort of obsession with me. I'm a literary critic kind of person. His name is Geoffrey Hartman. He taught at Yale, I believe, for ever, like 40 or 50 years. He's still around. He's in his 80s. And he was associated with what's commonly referred to in literary criticism circles as the Yale School of Deconstruction. And you probably know what deconstructionism is, Jacques Derrida and all of that. So Geoffrey Hartman is kind of in that same camp, except he's more explicitly a literary critic than people like Derrida were. The name of this book is called A Scholar's Tale, Intellectual Journey of a Displaced Child of Europe. It's a really tiny book. Again, going to put the picture of the book up on the box so you can see what that looks like. But on to the review. Oscar Wilde once said that literary criticism is the only civilized form of autobiography. And Geoffrey Hartman really takes that to heart. He's been really closely associated, as I said, with Yale for most of his professional life. And he's, if you're familiar with literary criticism, he's one of the best known living literary critics alive in the States today. Even though there's really no overarching methodology that you can apply to his entire body of work. A little word on the audience at which the book is aimed. It'll be of little interest, I think, for most readers who aren't at least a little bit familiar with the last 50 years or so of literary criticism in Europe, and especially the American upending of that criticism in the 70s and 80s. The title of the book both is and isn't a bit of self-conscious belly button gazing. While Hartman does a lot of name dropping, he discusses many of those names in detail, or at least as much detail as this tiny book, it's only about 180 pages, could. Those particularly interested in Hartman's contributions to Holocaust studies, memorial studies, and digitization, which he also did a lot of important work in, will certainly find something interesting because he talks about all of that. So Hartman was born in 1929 and was taken via Kindertransport to England until the end of World War II, which ended when he was 16 years old, which is then when he was able to move to the United States and pursue his education. So while he was doing his graduate work at Yale, and later when he became a professor there, he met a number of really important people associated with the literature and the comparative literature departments, including but not limited to really illustrious names like Paul de Man and Hans Robert Hals and Derrida and Harold Bloom and René Vellick and Erich Auerbach. Instead of turning his formidable power as an analyst and a critic toward himself, he looks at their ideas and offers the occasional insight of them as people, including pretty passionate defenses of both de Man, who, if you don't know, is often accused, not without reason, of being a Nazi, and Haas, against who I'm not sure if Haas has the same accusations against him, but he very well might. In either case, de Man certainly is accused of that all the time. Not necessarily after the war so much, but just sort of like being a tacit collaborator during the war. The book ends with a beautiful tribute to the German critic Erich Auerbach, who wrote a book called Mimesis, which you might know of, called Mimesis, The Representation of Reality in Western Literature. And it's really, at least as far as the work of the last 50 or 60 years goes, it's way up there. It's really, really important. And there's a beautiful tribute to him. So beyond these occasional coruscations, we get precious few glimpses into Hartman's own inner life, which is perhaps what many readers may want. I don't know. Do you really want to know about your professor at Yale who's been teaching literary criticism for the last 50 years? I don't know how much you might want to know about that. But this wouldn't be the first time in his life that he's bucked a trend, because he doesn't really tell you too much about his personal life. It's very much an intellectual history, just like the subtitle leads you to believe. The material in the book is wholly refracted through scholarly apparatus and his contributions to it, and therefore comes across as a little bit aloof and impersonal. Hartman is a really gentle, avuncular-sounding soul with a very capacious intellect and love for literature, which is what draws me to him as a human being. His call for the continued, very, very close reading of literature, I think, is a vital one that we're losing quickly, and we need to hold on to, as is his continuing suspicion of literary fads, like postmodernism in all of its sundry incarnations. So I would recommend this book to anyone interested in a sort of meditative, inward-looking account of a life spent totally in reading and learning, both of which Hartman does with a considerable joie de vivre. I want to meet him. Anyway, in case you're interested in a really interesting, influential guy in the field, this is a good place to start to get to learn about him and know about some of the things that he's done in the world of theory, which can be a big, daunting, confusing world. So check him out. Geoffrey Hartman, A Scholar's Tale, The Intellectual Journey of a Displaced Child of Europe.